just before we get into the podcast with Matt, it was a great interview, so make sure to watch it all the way through. But I just wanted to announce that Sam and I, on July 15th, we will be doing a live stream going over the new Lionel catalog. The time is still to be determined, so we will let you know what time it is going to be as soon as we know. But we just want to go over the Lionel catalog. We want to have you guys in the live chat, just talking so we can, just have one big general discussion about the new Lionel catalog. But with that, let's get into the interview. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Model Train Talk podcast. This week, it's a pleasure to have Matt-Trainlover9943 on the podcast to discuss. For those of you who may be checking out our podcast for the first time, our purpose of the podcast is really to develop a community in the model train area, whether it be through Instagram or YouTube. We just want to bring the community together, especially in these trying times where everybody's being kept apart. So without further ado, let's get into it.
So thank you, Matt, again for coming on to the podcast. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, not a problem. So when did this hobby all start for you? Where did it start off? Kind of like what was your first train set? Really, when did you get involved?
Well, for me, I've really been into trains, pretty much my whole life. I really haven't had a remote time where I've really not been into it. But, I started when I was really young, started off by, watching all the movies, every train thing you ever imagine, the I Love Toy Trains, the Great Train Layouts, all of those. The Great Train Layouts, those are really cool with the, like Tony Lash and some of those high rail guys. I remember watching those quite a while. And really had been enjoying those and other movies and stuff, which we can, I'm sure, get into later. But as far as the model railroad itself, like I said, I've been into it for a while. And as far as first trains go, my very first set was actually a sort of a family heirloom type of thing. And but my first set, well, not really set, but locomotive that I got was a MTH Rail King UP, actually two UP engines. One was a Northern, the other one was an RS3. I played with those for a while, and I had some stupidity happen, which I don't really prefer to go into, that caused those to not be usable anymore, which is why I don't have them with me. And I've had other stuff along the line, but as far as what I have currently now, my biggest thing was Legacy with Lionel. And for me, once I got that, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So a lot of my collection is Lionel.
Interesting. So kind of when you got into the hobby and you really started to discover Legacy, what was that like for you? And how much of an influence of discovering Legacy and being able to have this super high tech technology to control your trains, what was that like for you?
Oh, it was huge. I had my first, I'll go into this, my first Legacy engine was a Pennsylvania GP35, and that one took an unfortunate fall to the floor, which I was mad. I was really mad when that happened, but that's a story I'm not going to get into. But my big pivotal moment for Legacy was when I got my Pennsylvania Legacy SD70. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but that thing is a monster. That is a beautiful model. The horn on that thing is awesome. So that one really kicked it off for me. I saw it when it first came out, which I think was 2009 or so, and I got it, I think, a couple years after the fact. And when I got that, I'm like, this system is for me. This is really cool.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has so you talked about Legacy. When you got Legacy and stuff like that, did you ever have to adapt your layout to the Legacy system, or was it already kind of equipped and ready to go?
Well, adding Legacy is a lot more simple than adding DCS, because with DCS you got to basically cut your TIU into the equation, which isn't really hard. But with Legacy, all you do is you add a ground, and on basically any system you buy, any transformer, anything, all your grounds are tied together. Like if you put a meter on it and threw it on continuity, you'd have continuity between all your grounds. So you throw one ground line in anywhere, and your Legacy signal's there. So it was really adding one wire and you're good to go. And obviously the remote, which who can argue with the Legacy remote? It's really cool.
Interesting.
I also have the Wi-Fi unit, so I can run the trains with the iPad.
Okay.
That's pretty.
So in a lot of your videos, you talk about doing, electrical upgrades or changing sound files or adding LEDs to different structures. So where did that, like interest in, in the electronic side of model trains, how did that spark your interest?
Good question. As far as the LEDs go, I don't really know how that came to be. I do know, well, as far as the buildings go, for like the passenger cars and engines and all that, when Gunrunner John on the OGF Forum, he did the lighting kits, the lighting boards, the DC lighting boards, which I don't have any, but he did that. When I saw that and the difference between the bulbs and the lights, the LEDs, I was like, I got to start doing this. So I've been doing it ever since. All my buildings that I can convert are converted, and all of my passenger cars. And as far as the sound files go, that was, again, another thing. A gentleman, he wrote a program that you can edit the file, change it, manipulate it how you want, and really make your own custom files. And I thought that was just really cool. So I made a couple of them. And it's nice to have the train say something that it wouldn't normally otherwise say, and you can control what it says. You know what I mean? So you can make it your own, which is really cool.
Interesting. So how did you, I guess one of my questions is, I have some older buildings and I have a Menards O scale walk-in city block building that has LEDs and it lights up the layout, honestly. So what is your process for, converting buildings to LED lights and stuff like that? Like what products do you use and stuff like that?
So for the LEDs themselves, like I'll take a normal building, like maybe a 3-story building or even a passenger station, really anything. So the way I do it is I remove the bulbs that are in the building. Usually it's held on by screws or something. And I take the bulbs completely out and I put in their place LED strip lights that I get on Amazon. And I did a video on converting a subway car to LEDs, and you'll see the strips in that video.
I'll link
And
that video
so,
in the description.
all right. And so basically all I did was you take the bulbs out, you throw the LEDs in, and the difference is night and day. Now, with LEDs, you're supposed to run them on DC voltage. I don't. And the main real reason why is because I'm using the Lionel command switches, right? And those require AC power. I actually put a thread up on the forum about it, and they do require AC. And so I'd have to rewire my entire accessory setup to isolate the switches from the accessories to get on DC, which eventually I'll do. But they work just fine on AC. So for any of you guys asking, that they do work fine on AC, no problem.
There's always something else to do on the layout.
Oh yeah, if it's not one thing, it's another.
So do you mind telling us a little bit about your layout? I know you have both the PR Keystone that you have behind you there and the KTMR, but whichever one you feel like talking about, go right ahead.
All right, I'll talk about mine first, just because I'll touch on the KTMR, and I've gotten questions about this and that. Well, right now I haven't really been doing a whole heck of a lot on that layout. I really haven't been there in quite a while with all this coronavirus stuff. But when I have been going down there, I've mainly just been running trains, and there really hasn't been a ton of work to really report on. We are going through a design change with the layout, so I haven't really been documenting that at all, but I want to kind of get it all set up and all of that going before I really start documenting it, showing it off. But as far as my layout, I've had it since I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, so it's pretty old. It's made off of sawhorses and 3/4 inch plywood, which 3/4 inch plywood I like, but the sawhorse is not a fan of. But hey, you know what? I didn't build it. I had it built for me. But all the up top stuff, the electric, the track, all that, I did all that. So that was pretty cool. But it's 2 4x8 sheets of plywood, one right next to the other. So it's not the widest thing in the world, but for what I need, it's okay. And I can do what'll eventually be 44.5-inch curves on the layout, because I can do that on a 4x8. It's okay. So for what it is, it's fine.
So
I know I saw you asking about that on the OGR forum, and I know I'm on the OGR forum. I've brought it up a couple of times, but would you mind talking about the OGR forum a little, because I'm sure there are a lot of viewers out there that may not totally understand what the OGR forum is when
Like
you reference it.
personally for me, like RJ told me to get on the forum. So for me too, personally, this is interesting to hear from somebody who's been a part of it for a long time.
Sure. So for the OGR forum, it's a really good place to ask questions, learn about how to do things. I ask questions all the time. Sometimes they're stupid ones, but the stupid ones, they're the ones that nobody asks. So, it allows you to learn things and to meet people like we were talking before we started, learn how to do things and get a sense for what you're doing. If you're doing something wrong or want opinions on something, you can ask it. Like I show pictures of my layout and videos and stuff I do all the time, and I get comments and stuff. Hey, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? Kind of like on YouTube. So it's a place to really meet people and really show your layout off and your hobby, I guess is the quickest way to explain it.
Yep, and I know for me personally, I've probably been looking at the forum for close to 8 years now, but like they have people uploading track diagrams. It's not stuff that you can find in instruction manuals. Like I have the dual stall MTH engine shed. Now there's no track diagrams on what pieces of track you're supposed to use in the instruction manual. It's on the forum. You have problems with your DCS locomotives. Oh, well, somebody's probably had that same problem before, and somebody might have posted about it on the OGR forum. And it's just a collective of thousands of people in O-scale model railroading from across the entire world, really, and just sharing their information on what they've learned. And I can say that I've certainly incorporated things that I saw on the OGR forum onto my layout. So it's a real great tool for anybody in the hobby to use.
Oh yeah, and like for me, the 44.5-inch curve thing, I had no idea that was even a thing until I saw a thread on the forum about a 4x10 foot board with 44.5-inch curves. I'm like, holy smokes, this is really cool. So, and I still have yet to incorporate it, but I'll get to it. And that way I can run bigger locomotives. Like I like the Norfolk Western J, which I'm trying to get one. But I love that engine, and that's probably one of my favorite steamers. And I really can't run it. I mean, I could. I've seen someone do it on 36, but you make it looks better. Let's put it that way. Obviously, the bigger you go, the better it is. But
yeah,
you want it to at least move. Which that's another thing I don't like with companies when they put the minimum curve for a locomotive. I hate when they put minimum curve as whatever it is. I wish what they would put is the minimum curve for the engine to go around the track. Like, let's say it's a Hudson, for example. A Hudson will do 036, the regular ones, will do 036 all day long. I've ran a few of them. They run fine. I wish that would be the minimum curve, and then a recommended curve of 042, because I tried a Hudson, it didn't do my 36-inch switches. So have a recommended curve of 42 or higher, whatever it is, for the engine to go around switches, S curves, all of that. That I think would make a big difference in the sales too of trains.
Especially, I mean, you hear Eric Siegel of Eric's Trains. He complains about this in a lot of his reviews of the larger steam locomotives. Like, just coming off of my top of my head is the Pennsylvania 444.
Yeah.
It's an MTH model. It's a beautiful locomotive, and MTH lists the minimum curve as 072, and you need more than 072 to run it. Like the Lionel Vision Line Big Boy, you really need bigger than 072 to run it. But for in the case of Lionel and MTH, they only make up to 072, so that's what they have to list. But even smaller locomotives, like I have a Rail King Scale SD45-2, and I mean, I used to have 036 curves on my layout, and it looks ridiculous on 036 curves, and it's rated for 031 minimum curve.
That would look silly.
On my new layout, now I have an 048 outer loop that's controlled by DCS, and the SD45 still looks silly on an 048 curve, and it's recommended 031. Now, I'm not complaining about the way how it looks going around the curves. You know, it's a model toy train after all. But yeah, especially for those, you know, much more expensive locomotives, if you're putting out 072 and it needs 084, 099, you know, and somebody's going to spend $2,500 on locomotive, that's the least that a model train company can do.
No, and I agree. And, the best part is, and I ask these questions too, going back to the forum real quick, is minimum curves on engines. I'll ask, hey, will this engine do, the most recent one I did was, I was looking at some steamers. I was looking up the Legacy Pacifics, which they'll do 36, but in the thread, among others, one guy had a list of larger engines. One was the SP Daylight, and there's a Mohawk, I think, in there, and a couple others. And he lists that the minimum curve for them to run. The big one was the Penske M1A. Yeah. And that's a beautiful piece. That, believe it or not, will do a 36. I had zero idea it would do that. Obviously, I'm sure it would look like crap, but the point is it will go around the curve, which is, again, what I'm saying here.
Curve situation, I only have a 4x8 layout, and the maximum curve the radius is 036. And so when I'm looking to, buy a new engine, lately I've been kind of thinking of getting like a really detailed model, maybe like a Legacy SD45 or something, or, an MTH Premier or something to that degree. And so kind of when I'm like looking, I'm like, yeah, it turns 036, but does it look good? And will it hit any of the, surrounding scenery that I have with it as well? I think that's another thing, kind of to consider. So it would, personally for me, I think it would be a good idea for train companies to say, but the recommended one is, 048 or 052 or, something like that. So that way we don't spend the money, get the engine, and then find out that it doesn't clear a certain area and we have to remodel like a mountain or move a bridge or something to that degree.
Like even the 18-inch passenger cars, Lionel lists the aluminum ones anyway. They list those as 54. I got a Sound Diner, Pennsylvania Trailblazer, Sounds Diner, and that thing will do 36. However, again, it looks terrible, but, and then you find out these things. At one point, I had an S-curve in the back of my layout, and I was running some MTH 18-inch streamline cars through it. The heavyweights are no problem, I think. I don't know. But I was running the streamline cars through it, and it kept jumping the track. And at first I thought it was the engine. I was running a Hudson. And so I was running, and I'm like, why does this keep jumping the track? So I tried, turning the car around, this, that, and the other thing, and it wasn't working. So eventually I ripped out the S-curve, and it was fine. So I'm thinking that the S-curve, again, was the issue, which, again, goes back to the minimum curve. If you put 36 on the box to have it go around the curve, you're fine. And then for S and switches, 42.
So what type of locomotives or even rolling stock, like what era do you like buying? Is it mainly steamers? Do you like diesels, early diesel, modern diesels? Because, talking a little bit before, you have everything from an H10 to an SD70 Ace. So what do you like modeling?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I'm going through a little bit of a thinking phase on what I do want to model, because I was telling Sam before we started this that I watch a guy on YouTube called DJ's O-Gauge Trains.
Yeah, and I love DJ's.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, he's got those subways, and I love subways. I watch him, and there's another guy I watch, Brighton Zach. I don't know if you know him or not. But
I think I've seen one or two of his videos.
Yeah, him and DJ were a huge influence on my subways. I've seen the subways before, and I liked them. But, when I started seeing DJ's videos and Zach's videos, I got to have them. So I have 2 subways now. And really, the subways, I'm really leaning towards really going full bore on a New York City subway kind of thing. Obviously, I'll keep my modern stuff. We're talking about the H10. Got some Aces in there, I got some cab units. But, I go a little bit all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's I guess it's I don't have one specific section on modeling. However, I don't really care for the real modern stuff, you know, like the intermodal trains and the car carriers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like them, but I have some models of those cars, but I wouldn't really go rushing out to buy more just because you almost have to run that with a modern engine. Like if you took like a cut of box cars or a tanker train, you could run that with pretty much anything. But the the modern cars would look stupid behind like a steam engine or something. You know what I mean?
So MTH is going out of business, and
Oh yeah.
they were really the only player in town when it came to O gauge subways. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Lionel made those two R17s, I believe they were, like 10 or so years ago.
I got one of those. I got the 27. It's beautiful.
And so, are you concerned about that? You know, especially with your love of
yeah. Oh yeah. You know, when I first I think I was the very first video. I threw that video together about MTH closing. The first thing that went through my mind was what's going to happen with the subways. Oh my God, you should have seen it. I was going nuts.
I watched the video.
What's that?
I watched that video.
Oh yeah, I was going nuts. I'm thinking if Lionel better eat these subways up like they're yesterday's lunch. You know, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
that to me.
I understand where you're coming from because really MTH is the only one who produces a lot of Long Island Railroad and especially New York and Atlantic Railway, which is it's a short line here on Long Island. And, you know, Lionel's probably never even talked about them once during a production meeting.
Probably not.
So are you going through a panic buying stage where you're looking at MTH subways and, you know, thinking about purchasing them now instead of waiting around and hoping that one pops up on the secondary market?
Well, it was funny. It'll be when this is aired, it'll be about a week or so old. But I got a box in from Mario's Trains yesterday at the time of this recording here. Well, I wasn't originally going to buy the stuff I got from Mario's. My original purchase was an R17 graffiti subway set. However, the dealer I tried to buy it from sold it on eBay, and I went on a little rant on that on Facebook, and I was livid when I saw that because I saw the model on eBay before I went to buy it. It was a couple days before that. After that, I saw on eBay, and I was like, "You're kidding me! It's the same thing I just saw on eBay. I know that's why it was out of stock." I was ranting up a storm. So then I figured, okay, heck, I'll find them. It's just the problem is the price too. I think we're going to start seeing the $2,000 subways again. I really think we will.
Trainworld, you know, being a New York City, New York retailer, I think that they have probably the best subway collection of, you know, most of the major retailers. And I know for you and I, Matt, you know, here in New York, we're subject to that sales tax.
Oh yeah.
And then especially for you, you have to pay for shipping to where you're at from New York City. And at that point, you're paying $30, $40 than what the actual sticker price was when you purchase it online. And it just makes it really difficult to do that.
Yeah, you know, for us New Yorkers, you know, the reason why I don't do the New York is the sales tax alone. If there was no sales tax, I would go to New York all the time. But because for that sales tax alone, I don't do it because I know I can get it either cheaper or, well, cheaper really. But, you know, it's I want to support them. I don't want to pay the tax.
So for any of the other viewers out there who aren't from New York, I'm sure Sam's wondering, but we pay practically a 9% sales tax on all of our purchases. So when you're purchasing a, you know, $430 subway set, you're really paying another 40, you know, 30, I think it comes out to like $37 in tax. And then you also have to pay how much shipping is going to be. So at the end of the day, you're out another $50, $60, you know, just to get the set that you purchased. And there are dealers out there from out of state. I know Matt was talking about Mario's Trains. I've been purchasing from Mario's Trains a lot. I've purchased an engine, a lot of track, and whatever. That's who I'm pre-ordering with now. But they have free shipping, no sales tax, and at the end of the day, although their sticker prices on the website are just they're a couple ticks higher than a lot of the other bigger retailers, especially Trainworld. At the end of the day, it's cheaper for me to purchase through them than it is to go to Trainworld.
And they got coupons too, which, I mean, that's another big savings. Not only you got free ship, but you got free money basically.
Yep. Free money for trains and stuff like that. So, you guys were kind of talking about sales tax and Trainworld and stuff like that. And it was interesting in our last podcast, we talked about, supporting our local hobby stores and stuff like that, because, with MTH going out of business, now there's one less producer, I guess you could say, in O scale and O gauge stuff. And so now it's really, we have Lionel and a couple smaller markets, but basically it's hobby stores and stuff like that. I guess you kind of already talked about it with your opinion and stuff like that, but how important right now do you think it is to kind of support people in the hobby and support those hobby stores?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, I'll just hit on this real quick just because you mentioned with the manufacturers. Really, at this stage right now that we know, it's Lionel only. I mean, Atlas, yeah, Atlas is there, but they don't really.
Lionel's a monopoly. For all intents and purposes,
Yep.
Lionel's a monopoly in the O-gauge market.
Yep. I mean, Atlas really doesn't do next to anything as far as O-scale production goes, and Lionel, yeah, they're basically a monopoly. So as far as supporting your local stores go, absolutely do it if you can. I unfortunately don't have any anymore. My one store that I was going to, the owner passed away, and they haven't done anything with it since. So I don't have a local store to go to. And as far as shows and stuff, I don't really do the shows. I used to, but I don't do them anymore because there's nothing really that I really need to buy that I can't go online and buy it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I touched on this briefly in the last podcast that we did, which hasn't come out yet when we're recording this.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, there's probably close to 10 hobby stores on Long Island, and now from the looks of it, it seems we're going to be down to one by the end of the year. And so, when I need something quick, whether it just be like Woodland Scenics Glue, or if I'm just perusing for, a new freight car or whatever, I'll take the 30-minute ride down to Nassau Hobbies in Freeport. But still, I, just trying to help them out a little. But at the end of the day, these bigger retailers out there in the market, whether it be Trainworld or any of these other ones, it's making it extremely difficult for these smaller hobby stores to survive. So once again, I'm just saying, even if it's an hour or so drive to your nearest hobby store, just go and pick something up and help them out a little.
And another thing to go along with that, personally for me, I was kind of on a lone island by myself. And so now that I have made a YouTube channel to reach out to people, and now I'm doing this, I think everybody who's in the hobby, if you're somebody who's, entering the hobby like around this time, it doesn't look very good for you because one, MTH is out of business. So you have one less person to buy from essentially. Starter. I've heard, I've never really bought much MTH, but I've heard they've made really great starter sets and stuff to get into the hobby. And, now Lionel's a monopoly, so there's not much selection to choose from. So, I mean, sometimes on eBay, people oversell stuff way too much. And it's just really hard for these people who want to enjoy something like trains and, just making their own little world. It's difficult for them. And I think I'm, just reaching out to somebody who's beginning new in the hobby or stuff like that, just kind of reach out to them and say, hey, I'm here to support you. And, if you have any questions, let me know. And, we kind of talked about it earlier. That's why we have the O-gauge Forum and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And even just hitting back on your point on eBay and MTH going out of business, unfortunately. Hopefully they come back in some form. But I mean, I was looking at stuff on eBay, and even just like a simple, building, I could get MTH used buildings on eBay for $20, $30. In fact, I got one of them on my layout for $20, $25. And now those same buildings are, in the neighborhood of 60 to 70 because, people are panic buying, or people think that they all of a sudden became so much more valuable overnight. But yeah, going back to your point, if somebody is, just starting to enter into the hobby, reaching out to them and giving them some steps, and that, eBay isn't your only solution. There are other places out there, and you can do things for cheap and O scale, regardless of what you see on the price tags when you look stuff up.
And that's kind of why I made my YouTube channel, because it's like, it's possible, but it's very difficult. Like, I had to do a lot of research, and I had to, really deep dive into a lot of things just to find out what, how to save money and stuff like that. And going back with eBay, I recently purchased a post-war turbine from eBay. And so the asking price was $150 and shipping was going to be around $25. But he had a option to, put in like your own offer and stuff like that. And so I took him down to 125. I saved myself $25. And I'm just thinking, it'd be easier for people who are getting into the hobby. If you're a seller or something like that, just be a little reasonable with somebody. And, once, we're kind of more reasonable with somebody, their first impressions of the hobby increase a little bit, and it's like, okay, maybe this is something I really want to get into. Okay, so kind of switching topics, you said you went to train shows previously and stuff like that, but what was the step you kind of took to really get involved? Was it YouTube to get involved on a larger scale per se?
Yeah, I'd say it was YouTube. I made my YouTube 2012, I think. So I was 13, and I did it like 2:30 in the morning. I had nothing better to do at the time. But so I made it. I threw up a few videos, and all of a sudden, then I found a couple guys that really liked it. And, one of them was Nick, PGH Train Fanatic. I don't know if you guys follow him or not, but he was one of my first subscribers on there. And I was excited. Him and we got chatting back and forth and all of that, and we're still pretty good friends now, which is really cool. And but you slowly start making them, and then you just keep going and going. I am very thankful for the now 1,200 subscribers I have, and it's taken me a lot of work to get there. And I don't do a ton of work on my layout all the time. So, I don't really upload all the time, but, I do, when I do things here and there, I upload it, and people seem to really enjoy it, which, I really like that. I really enjoy the community aspect of it. And even like a podcast like this, you sit down here, you talk trains, you just have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I would definitely agree. Me and RJ have had some great times, especially the other day when we talked with GFW trains. That was a fun podcast. But anything else you want to add, RJ? Or
so one last question about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, ask as many as you want.
I know it goes way back, because when I first started mine, Long Island, NYC, that's when I remember watching your videos all the way back then. But
I remember watching yours when it was that too.
With my prepubescent voice, the good old times. But what continues to drive you to make those YouTube videos? You've been making them for 8 years now. You've probably made, a couple hundred in your channel's lifespan, whether they're all still up there or not. Is it that community aspect that drives you to, continue producing videos?
Oh yeah. Like I said, I really enjoy that. I enjoy when people comment on my videos. I get really excited, and sometimes we'll, private message or email or text or something, back and forth. It's fun to share the hobby with other people that enjoy it just as much as you do, and they're passionate about it just as much as you are, like you or DJ or whoever else, or even Sam, any of them. The community aspect really is a big driving factor into why I do the videos. And I do them for my own enjoyment too, to show off the progress of my layout and all that. But the community is really why I'm into it.
Somebody's trying to get into the community.
there you go.
Talk model trains with someone. How how would you think is the best way about going about that?
Well, for me, what I would do is if I had nothing as far as a channel goes, as far as a layout goes, that could be we can get to that if you want, if I'm starting a train layout. But as far as YouTube goes, the way I would do it is, just show off what you have. Do a layout tour or show a train that you like or something like that. Get people going. That's what I basically did. I just started showing random trains off. And and then I did a layout tour of my own layout and kind of showed people what, I was after. And eventually you start just developing an audience. And so really, I guess showing what you have and, if, hey, there's an unfinished section here, what should I do with it? Like, I'll do polls and stuff on Facebook all the time, asking people, hey, what should I put here? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? What do you think I should do with it? And I always ask people sometimes in the video, hey, I got an unfinished piece. What should I do with it? And so I feel like getting other people's opinions on what you should do with a section or whatever is a big help.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's helped me quite a few times in doing what I want to do.
Yep, yeah. I know I've certainly have asked in the YouTube in my YouTube videos, asking my viewers, what do you think I should do here? And I've taken their suggestions, and it's turned out to, great little scenes on the layout.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of again talking about this, the reason why I kind of went like, was that a bad question? Is because when I got into it and I got into YouTube and stuff, there was, I had already seen the goods and the bads and stuff like that, and so I guess one of my things of motivation, especially with doing this now, is to show the good. Like there's people out there who want to help you get into it and stuff like that. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I absolutely agree with that. And obviously the suggestions that people give you, you can take them with a grain or two of salt if you want. But generally speaking, I use them. Obviously the decisions at the end of the day is my own. But I really do keep them into consideration, which I think is a really good thing to do.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, Matt, again, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I will, for any of the viewers who don't know Matt, I will leave all the links in the description of this podcast below. I'll link, I believe, was his name DJ as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave that as well. And I'll see if I can find the video of you installing the LEDs for the subway. If anybody's interested in that aspect of the hobby, I will link that in the description below as well. So as we kind of wrap things up here, any closing thoughts, Matt? Anyone watching out there?
Well, I feel like the first thing you have to do with keeping the hobby going is and I know one of your questions was about the youth. And I have two little brothers. And I look at them, and to be honest, I see me when I was their age. They're going to be 6 and 2. I see me in them. They have a ball with it. So I feel like you get the youth in there. It doesn't have to be legacy, DCS, command, all that stuff, but just allow them to embrace the hobby just like you would. Like I said, they enjoy watching the trains. They run the trains a little bit, but they have a lot of fun, and that's how I feel you're gonna keep the youth involved by showing it off, showing what you can do, and having them explore their own little world of it too, which is always a lot of fun. And it puts a big smile on my face, let me tell you that.
I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that statement.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else you would like to add?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Viewers who are watching, thank you for watching. Make sure to go check out Matt's channel and stuff like that. Kind of see all the stuff that he's done with his aspect of the hobby and just kind of his take on it and stuff like that. And thank you for watching. And me and RJ will see you in the next podcast.